Hi everyone, it's Jeanette here from the Sewing Studio with a follow-on video actually for you all from our starting a new scrap quilt at the beginning of the year. Because I've made my 48 blocks, I'm feeling very pleased with myself. It came together so quickly because I was sewing it in between sewing other things and it just seemed to come together really quickly. So what I thought I'd do today for you all is to show you some layouts. So I've got my little basket here and I'm just going to pull some of these out. Now I've clipped them together in sets of 4 just for sort of ease, but I'm going to be taking those apart actually for layouts. Now I'll go through quantities and everything at the end and we'll also put that in the description. So these, as I said, and also if you haven't seen the original video where we were making these blocks, we'll put a link to that as well. So layout options. Now just as a reminder, let's just put the block in under the close-up so you can all see it in case you haven't. So that's what our block looked like. So we've got our 2 dark squares, 3 light squares and 4 half square triangles. And thank you to all of those that replied with suggested names for the block. I think the closest one is Contrary Wife, but I think the colour placement's slightly different. So we'll call it a variation to that. So that's the block. So let's just have a look at some little layouts. Now one of them I'm going to sort of hopefully stay in shot. Let's just move everything right out of the way. So we've got the mat. You can just line them up so that they're all pointing in the same direction. So we've got the half square triangles all going off there to the upper left. And when we do that, let's just pull another set of 4. You can see we start to get, actually I wouldn't do that. Let's just move that one away from that brown. That's probably about my only rule with scraps, but it doesn't really matter. And you can see you begin to get these rows happening. So let's just put some more down so you can begin to see the magic happen. This is where I've gone quiet because I'm focusing on what I'm doing. So there we are, you can begin to see we get these, it's almost like the fields and furrows layout in a log cabin block where you get these lines of sort of colour going up through the quilt. So that's one layout. You can also do something similar where we're just going to turn these blocks. I'm actually going to do it that way. It's always much harder for me to do this on camera because I'm right on top of the work. It's always easier at home because I can sort of stand back from it. And we're just going to have one going, oh that one's okay, one going in one direction. So you get these sort of chevron shapes beginning to happen. So let's just turn. Oh, that one's okay. So if you can see there, we get more of the chevron shape happening on that particular layout. Or we can do one more where we bring all the lights to the centre. And you can begin to see what happens as we start to create, let's move those away, we start to create star blocks. So it comes with a star. So that's just 3 simple layouts. I'm sure there are others. So if you're making these blocks, just lay them all out and have a little play and just sort of see what patterns you can come up with. And if you do come up with any other patterns for inspiration for others, you can please share your photos through our Facebook and Instagram accounts and we can, as I said, share those with other people. So which layout did I choose? Let me show you. You can probably tell because anybody that knows me knows that I love a star block. So I went for the star. So here's one that I've already sewn together and it's really striking. So I started to do that and laid out my star blocks. Let me just grab a couple more so that you can see. And what I did to get to that is I actually took photos of each of the different layouts and then I looked at it on my phone. And then I thought, which one for me is giving me a really nice strong pattern? And it was definitely the star block. So that's a really good way of just looking. And I think there's something about being able to flick quite quickly from one pattern to the other, rather than for waiting to rearrange it and then your brain sort of re-see it, that sometimes that's sort of really obvious which one to go for. Right, let me put those back in my little basket. So I've got 48. So I'm doing a 6 by 7. No, 6 by 6, because 6 sevens aren't 48. So basically 3 of the star blocks across is the width and it'll be 3 star blocks down. No, it will be 4 down. Gosh, my maths has gone out the window today. So that's going to be the width of my quilt. Now we'll come back to that in a minute, because what I'm going to do is just sew these 4 together into the star block, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to put it together. So let's do that here first. So let's lay my 4 blocks out. Now the only thing I look at is sort of what colours are next to each other here, just to get a bit of a variety, a bit of interest. But it's a scrappy quilt, so you don't have to be too fussy. I'm actually going to turn that around like that. Yeah, and I'm happy with that. Sorry, that's probably off the camera a little bit. Let me pull that up. So you can see all the whites come to the centre, and then we've got our star block. So we're just going to sew that together now like a normal 4 patch. Now there is quite a lot of seams to match here. So you just want to put them together, and if you press towards all the dark squares, all the solid squares, rather than the half square triangles, all your seams should lock together. And I will just say something else about the pressing actually after I've pinned. I don't seem to be able to pin and talk at the same time. There we are. These centre rows, when I put the 9 patch together, I pressed inwards. And because I turned the star block, for the star block, it means that all your seams will nest. So I waited to do that until I chose the layout, because it depends how you put them together as to which way you want your seams to go. But if you're doing star blocks, those last 2 seams where we turn the block into the 9 patch, press them towards the centre and everything will lock or nest together. So let's just take these, and the thing I have to watch, because I move the fabric more when I'm here. At home it's right next to me, is make sure that I don't sew this upside down or something silly. So let's pin both of those. This was so much fun to do, I loved it. Right, let's do those 2. So we've done those 2, so we're just going to put that together. So I'm just going to clip that. Some people leave that thread. I tend to get rid of it. And then we're going to finger press this top seam to the left. Just move that out of the way. And then the bottom seam to the right. Just making sure I've still got everything in the right orientation. Sorry, no I haven't, so I just need to... I did manage to flip those around on the way to the machine. You tend to find if your pieces go out of order, it's normally when you're moving them from your work surface to your machine. So this is where the sort of design board, or I sometimes use a large ruler to carry my pieces across to the sewing machine if I've had to move anything too much. Now you can see here I haven't pinned. I tend not to. I find I get a bit blasé if I've used pins. I tend to like to sort of check as I go. just flipped. So that's our star block. Now I will say, if you haven't got your match points on exactly, because it's a scrappy quilt, it's a bit more forgiving, and quite often you can't tell quite so much. But the points to watch really are here. I think you sort of probably notice it more here. But actually, if you haven't got some of these exactly spot on, as I say, quite often because of the scrappiness of the block, you don't notice it. So we'll just take that to the iron and give that a quick press. Now it doesn't really matter which way this seam goes, so I'm just going to press it to one side. And then once I've done the back, I then just make sure that we've got no tucks and creases on the front. So there's the star block all done. So the next decision was how to put the star blocks together. Now, because I've just got the 48 blocks, I thought it was going to be quite a small quilt if I just put the 3 blocks together. Now also, if I do that, you can sort of see, the blocks quite well, and you've got these sort of 4-patch blocks of colour that come together. But I thought, actually, you sort of lose the pattern a little bit. Perhaps we'll put some sashing rows in between. And I was having a little play with sashing rows, and I decided on a pieced sashing. Now, let me just bring up one I did earlier so you can see what I'm talking about, and then I'll show you how to do it. So here are 3 blocks in a row. So there's our block right there. And then this is what I'm talking about with a pieced sashing row. Now what I've done, let me just put it under the close-up. You won't be able to see all of it, but you'll be able to see hopefully enough. Is what I've done is pieced in some of the colour. I had lots of the 2.5-inch squares left. So it sort of makes this shape rather than a solid block of 4. It makes this sort of almost like a nought or an O in there. So that gives me a bit more width on the quilt, and it actually sort of gives a secondary pattern in on that as well. So you can sort of see we've got these O shapes going along. It also, because I've done it scrappy as well, so it used up more of my leftover bits. So, and I actually sort of quite liked that idea of putting a pieced sashing in. So let's have a look at how we do that. So let me move that one to one side for a minute. So we can lay out our 3 blocks. Let's put that one up there out of the way as well. And we're going to bring in, actually I'll bring in one that I've started so that you can see. Nope, that is not one I've started. It's too long, I could tell it was too long. So let's just have a look at laying one out. So we start with a neutral, and then I need to grab my little basket. So I'm still using my basket with everything in. So I'll put that under the close-up. That's what's left. So I've still got loads of the coloured squares left. Let me just put those to one side for a minute. So let's grab a colour that we might want to use. Now I don't want to use that because that's right there. Now some people might just close their eyes and pull one out, which you could do. But let's make it look nice for camera. So let's do that one and that one. So we've got a light square, a dark square, and then we need the equivalent of 2 light squares there. Now you could do it scrappy and have 2 light squares, or you can cut yourself some little 4.5-inch pieces, which are what I've done there. And then we've got a dark square, and then we've got our light square again. So that's our vertical sashing rows, which are going to go in between the blocks. So let's take that to the machine and sew. If I pick this up in order. I should keep myself straight. Let's put those back there. I'll come back to that in a minute. Put my basket there. Get yourself organised. What I started to do as leader and enders is put, because I knew I needed a light with a dark, is start putting pairs together. So let's do this one as well. So I'm going to press, no, I'm just going to have a look which way to press. I'm going to press towards the dark square, I think. And I'm going to attach the 4.5. Now I should put the hover function on this machine. I keep meaning to do that. After the question, we had a question about doesn't it have a sort of an auto lift function? Yes, this machine does. So then that goes on there. So we've got light, dark, 2 lights, dark, light. No, I say 2 because that was the equivalent of 2 light squares. So let's take this to the iron, give it a press. Look, I'm getting very messy. This is like I am at home. I'm all nice and neat here, but I get quite scruffy when I'm working. It's like creativity happening. Then if I get too messy, I have to stop and tidy it up because it stresses me out too much. There we are, so it's going to go in there. So let's attach it to this block. I'm just going to pin this first one. There are quite a lot of match points in this because we're using lots of little pieces. But I said, you know, it's a scrappy quilt, so if you don't get it spot on, just do your best. With practice, you'll get better. So. Now that one I'm actually going to press the other way because my seam's going the other way than that one. Now I tended to press the seam under the sashing. So there we are, we can see the first bit of piece sashing going on, and then that block will get attached there, and then we'll do another vertical one to go between those 2 blocks there. So that's the vertical sashing. So let's have a look at the horizontal. It's exactly the same principle. Actually, let's take that block away. Let's just, oh no, we'll need it for spacing. Let's put that back in my basket. So the horizontal ones, and I've got one here, but we will sew it together. The horizontal one is going to go like so. So we're doing exactly the same thing where we've got our 2 dark squares there. So either side of those 2 dark squares, we need to put a dark square into the sashing. And then opposite that, we're going to do our lights. And you can see here, I've pieced lots of little bits together. So I will put a little diagram in the description box that you can sort of have a look at, that you can download, to just show you the strips, where to put the colour placement. But it's sort of fairly simple. If you just sort of look at those 2 colours there and then just think either side of those you need a dark, and then everything else in between that is going to be lights. So those are the points where the two dark squares get added. So this was this one, started to piece together here. So you can see we've got 1 light, then we've got sort of 2 or a 4.5 inch strip. Then everywhere where we've got the blocks coming together under the sashing, we'll have a row of 3 or a 6.5 inch strip. Now you can see on some of these I've pieced, and some of these I've just used a single fabric. And then we will need, let's grab my box again. Then we'll need a dark square, then a light square, 2 light squares. Actually, let's bring in another 4.5 inch piece, because that's the equivalent of 2. And then we're going to need another dark, so let's grab a different colour. They're all blue. Let's grab a red. And then we're going to need another 2 or 4.5 inch strip. Oh no, that's a 3. There we are, Jeanette, you fooled yourself because you pieced it. So let's put that bit in. That's a 3 there. That's a sashing row, 3. And then another dark, 2, so that's all 2.5 inch squares. 1 more dark, let's do that one. Oh. And then 1 more light square. So that's our long sashing rows that are going to hold those together. So let's just finish off sewing this one very quickly if we can. And if I do it in sections, I tend to do it in sort of parts, because then you can just sort of chain piece them through. And that's going to go on there. And then our 2 light squares go together. Oh, they're not pins, they're needles. And then that one. And then once I've got all the fabric into pairs, I then start putting sort of pairs into 4s, etc., etc. So let's just take that to the machine, and this is how I would sew it at home. And then you start getting your separate elements, your bigger elements that you can start piecing together. I'll have a little tidy up look. I particularly get messy when I'm doing scrappy quilts. Right. So this is what they refer to when they talk about chain piecing, where you're just putting one piece in after the other without breaking the thread in between. So I can now take my first 2 pieces and then no 2 squares ever go together, dark squares, so I know that light is going to have to go there. Oh, didn't quite get that. Now I know that's a long piece, so that's to go under my sashing. That's a shorter piece, so that's going to go in between the two colours. And that piece is going to go on there, so and then that light goes next to a dark. So there it is, all sewn, and if I put it under the other one, we can see, as I said, we'll do a little diagram so you can see the colour placement of the piece sashing, because it can be a little bit confusing. So we just need 3 of these long strips, and I think we need 6 of those. It might be 8, I can't remember. We'll put the detail for you in the description below, and as I said, then these just go onto there. And if we just bring out our other row that's already done, you can begin to see. Oh, my machine's a little bit in the way there. Let's move it over. And then we'll have to go off the edge there. Sorry, I can't get my piece there. So you can begin to see, that one goes there, how that is going to come together. So we've got these sort of circles or sort of zeros and noughts happening here, and then our star blocks in between. So as I said, it just spaces those star blocks out a bit, gives us a secondary pattern here, uses up a few more of our scraps, and makes the quilt a little bit bigger. So lots of ticks and lots of wins on that one. So I hope you like this layout. I hope you're giving it a go. If you are, please do share photos with us. We always like to see what you are doing. So thank you for that. The next time you see this, we may be quilting it. Let's have a go at quilting it. I've got to decide if I'm going to put borders on it, and if so, how I'm going to do the borders. So a few steps to get there, but I'm really excited to have the 48 blocks done, and I can now crack on and get the rest of the sashing rows done and the middle of the quilt pieced together. So thank you ever so much for your time. If you've enjoyed seeing this, please do like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, if you don't want to miss any sort of follow-up videos where I'm working on this or any of the other projects that we're doing, particularly the pineapple quilt is the next one I'm going to be looking at, adding borders to that. You can hit the bell so it notifies you when we issue a video so you don't miss anything. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you'll join us again here next time in the Sewing Studio.